It's that time. Everything and anything basketball, presented by The Outrage. With Kajan Thirsani-Casselum and host Spencer Byers, this is Polar Opposites.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 21, Polar Opposites. I know I stopped saying episodes, but once in a while I will just throw it in there that I am paying attention, that Kajan and I are paying attention. Spencer Byers, Kajan, Thirsani-Casselum, regularly scheduled programming continuing here on the Outrage Inc. with Polar Opposites. Big night in the NBA, lots of teams in action today, yesterday, starting day on Tuesday. Kajan and I have gone through our top 10 per position. Kajan and I have gone through where we think teams are going to finish, and now teams have started. So we are going to talk a little bit about teams' first games, how they looked, who we like, who we haven't liked, who looked good, who didn't look good. I watched the end of the Celtics game. Kajan was at the Raptors game, as he does work for MLSE as a, I'll say, the concession stand, Kajan? Concession stand?
NC runner.
MC, there you go. He's MC Hammer, basically. He's MC Runner, he's with MC Hammer, you know? So to start us off, Cage, we will start with Adam Sliver. We talked about a couple weeks ago. He said that they were going to think about switching from the draft All-Star game back to East versus West All-Star game, and they have officially ratified that. They have now gone to the East versus West All-Star game. I said I preferred it. I'm not sure. I don't really remember, Cage, what you said about it, if you were for or against the All-Star game going East versus West / draft. But I'm definitely for it.
I'm all for it too. Only problem is only issue is, and that just goes to show like how the talent level is. There's a lot more talent on the West than there is on the East. So there's going to be some snubs on the West side compared to the East, and there's going to be like all-stars from the East that usually would not be mentioned in the West.
And also, it's a younger set of crop of players you'd expect, Cage, with the East versus the West. Yes, obviously Wembanyama is with the Spurs, but you've got the Pistons, who got lots of young guys, the Hornets, who have got young guys, and LaMelo Ball, who's still rather young. You got the Magic full of young guys. You got the Pacers full of young guys. A lot of young teams in the East compared to the West. The West is a little more older. AD, LeBron, KD, Booker's not that old, but still with Beal and all of those types of players, comparatively speaking, to the East. So it definitely will be more of a passing the torch type of All-Star games, in my opinion. But to continue with Adam Sliver, and I'm going to play this because I think this is amazing. So Charles Barkley, who we all know, part of the TNT crew with Ernie Johnson, Shaquille O'Neal, Shaq, Kenny the Jet Smith, and of course the round mound of Rebound. So they were in the panel with Commissioner Adam Sliver, and they were about to go to commercial, Cage. They were just about to go to commercial. And then Charles Barkley decides he's going to be I'm going to use the term, and Kajan, I think you and I both know I'm going to hate using this type of term, so I'm actually going to change it before I say something I regret. It's just an absolute Chad moment, and decides that he's going to ask Adam Sliver the real question that everyone's been thinking about.
And performs on the floor. I got one more question. I don't care. He said go to commercial, but I got a serious question for you. There's a couple of disturbing incidents of domestic violence in the NBA right now. What are we doing to address that? Because that is you can't put your hands on women, man. And we should be at the forefront in sports when the men hit women. So what are we as a league going to do about that?
Well, again, that's an area where we're not looking to compete against other leagues when you say forefront. So I think all the leagues are trying to address this issue. But I know, again, our Players Association, credit to them, this wasn't adversarial. We put in place a new program for how we deal with, first of all, accusations of domestic violence even before they're prosecuted. Part of it goes to training of our players, counseling of our players to make sure they understand during high-stress situations that, obviously never resort to violence against anyone. And so we're addressing it. We have, state-of-the-art counseling professionals dealing with our players. But of course, and if a guy, does cross the line, the consequences are enormous.
So again, Adam Silver on TNT Inside the NBA, live from, I assume, is the opener between Los Angeles Lakers and the Denver Nuggets. I'm not sure if that was in Denver or LA. Cajun would
It was
definitely
in
know.
Denver. It was in Denver.
It was in Mile High in Colorado. But it takes into a question, Cajun, and I know you heard it, I believe earlier today or yesterday, and I heard this, I think, a couple days ago, because I heard it when it first came out, because I read it and went, oh, I got to listen to what Charles asks him, because you and I have talked about this to nauseum with the Miles Bridges situation that's come and gone. He's now, of course, obviously turned himself in to that warrant we talked about. Kevin Porter Jr. has been traded and I believe cut, but still really no word if he's been cut from the Oklahoma City Thunder. And, I know it's not domestic violence, but still you've got a guy like John Morant who continues to make the same mistake. He's out for the next 25 games because of flashing weapons, specifically handguns, on Instagram Live more than once, at least twice, maybe thrice. And the reason why I want to talk about this, Cage, is not more because of Adam Silver's answer, which was the most political correct answer he could have given. Like, if you would have written out what the commissioner would have said this on a podium, he basically would have said what Adam Silver said. He said basically what you would have written down. It was a complete political answer.
He literally said a whole bunch of nothing.
Exactly. He gave us nothing to give you confidence that, okay, this will never happen again. It very much was, well, we added this new policy, and obviously we're training our players to not act out violently. And basically it was, well, we're trying to stop it before it happens, but when it happens, the quote-unquote punishment, as you heard, will be enormous. When Kevin Porter Jr. has still not been suspended, Miles Bridges has not been suspended for his most recent interaction. So
and that's what's the most maddening out of all this. It's like, at least Kevin Porter Jr., and I was looking at this, he's now a free agent. Like, OKC actually cut him after all that happened, once he got traded. But how in the world is Miles Bridges still on the team?
Why he's still might I add?
Why he's still on a team is beyond me. And this has been a problem with the NBA. And Adam Silver, he's talked a lot about social justice issues, but there's also other issues that they don't really touch upon or poorly handle. Case in point, when Daryl Morey was with the people of Hong Kong, and then with the deal between NBA and China, and how they make a lot of business from the Chinese market, that kind of affected them, and that was mishandled from the get-go. So he's out. Ever since he took over there's been mishandling issues like this. And I was like, and this never really happened under David Stern. You never really heard this happen under David Stern. Sure, Adam Silver's advanced the game a lot more than David Stern, but David Stern kept things in check.
It's kind of interesting, Cage, because David Stern obviously has been accused of a lot of things in his tenure as commissioner: game fixing, the alleged suspension of Michael Jordan. Again, not speculating, just the idea, the conspiracy theories of fixing the draft for Patrick Ewing going to New York, the conspiracy theory about Michael Jordan being suspended for a year, why he went to go play baseball instead of him wanting to go play baseball, and some other things, the conference finals between the Sacramento Kings and the Los Angeles Lakers. That was the Shaq and Kobe Lakers versus the Chris Webber Kings, and the free throws being so slanted in favor of the Lakers. A lot of things were pinned at David Stern, but they were never off the court. They were always on the court. And I'm not sure which one's worse, Cajun. I'm not sure if David Stern's accusations of fixing, which in my opinion is worse than the mishandlings of off the court issues by Adam Silver, but both in their own right are not positive for both commissioners, former and present, of the NBA.
Yeah, and it's like you've seen NBA players get off scot-free, and it kind of just like is a sobering reminder of the privilege athletes have over us common folk. Because God forbid, if one of us put our hands on a woman, we all know how that's gonna end.
Very poorly is the answer, Kate.
But
Very poorly.
it seems like all athletes are gonna get is a slap on the wrist and maybe therapy. It's just frustrating. It's just maddening to see. And credit Charles Barkley, credit the round mound of rebound for asking the tough questions and saying it as it is. But Adam Silver said a whole bunch of nothing, and I can't be surprised knowing that he looks like Barnacle Boy from SpongeBob SquarePants. But that's just me.
Yeah, Kajan loves making references and saying legal names, so he will definitely make a couple more of those if you haven't already heard throughout the many episodes. I want to say before we move on, because I wanted to lead off. Well, you said you wanted to lead off with this because of me, and a reason why I wanted it on the lineup is because I just want to give big ups to Charles Barkley, and I know Charles Barkley always didn't listen to this, and he don't care about common folk like you and I, but Charles Barkley is what every fan wants an analyst to be. They want them to be unbiased, relatively. Obviously, Charles and Shaq and Kenny all played for their own individual teams and have their biases towards guys, good and bad. Shaq specifically with, Shaq's in a fool and all of that debacle with JaVale McGee and all the other players that he kind of dogged on through that show that weren't happy about it. But anyway.
Say with me. JaVale McGee.
He said it enough, Cage. You can find a 20-minute compilation of Shaq saying it. So, but big ups to Charles Barkley, as you said, Cajun, for not being scared, going to a break, saying no, we gotta, I don't care if y'all go to break, but we have to ask, like Commissioner Silver, what are we doing as a league to ensure players understand that these actions are reprehensible and not condoned? We do not allow these types of actions by players.
Chuck's always been that type.
Go ahead.
Chuck's always been that type of guy, though.
And that's the best part. And that's why people want more analysts like him. They don't want the entitled, analysts that we have now, where guys think that they're, the second coming and act like, they're stars in their own right. When in fairness, some of them are and some of them aren't. But I still think a guy like Charles Barkley is what every analyst should be, is not caring about necessarily having a job. Because Charles Barkley will tell you, he does what he does because he enjoys it, not because he needs the money or because he needs to be there. Charles Barkley could retire at any one point from TNT, and it will not hurt him in the slightest. So Barkley has that stability of being able to say, I don't care if I have consequences to asking a question that other analysts would have consequences to if they worked for one of the other major brands, that's ESPN, Fox, or TNT, Turner Broadcasting. So that's what I wish more analysts were like, is not worrying so much about the stability. I understand it. I'm not trying to act like I wouldn't do the same. If I knew by asking a question, I could get disciplined as far as being fired, I probably wouldn't ask that question. But I also know in the back of my mind, I'd want to ask that question regardless. Because if the question needs to be asked, somebody should have the balls to ask the question. Okay, Commissioner Silver, what are we doing to stop players like Miles Bridges, like Kevin Porter Jr., like John Morant from doing these things off the floor that affect everything on the floor and make us look like a league that doesn't care? Like the NFL has royally messed up situations. And, Henry Ruggs, who will now most likely never play football again. Michael Vick, who's the other major athlete who got sent to prison for a year and didn't get to play football. Other than those two guys, not a whole lot of football players actually get blackballed. Ray Rice did, but he never went to prison. He just got blackballed from the NFL. But you have lots of other athletes who do things that they should, like, how many instances did Antonio Brown do off of the field that should have affected him on the field and didn't? And I'm not saying Antonio Brown's not a great football player, because he was a great football player, but his off the field has cost him hundreds of millions of dollars in the NFL. And it's costed probably Michael Porter Jr. hundreds of millions of dollars. because you and I, Kajan, will openly admit Kevin Porter Jr. is a good basketball player, could be a great basketball player. But his off-the-court issues that have got him traded out of Cleveland, now traded out of Houston, and cut from Oklahoma City may have just costed him a couple $100 million basketball career. And the NBA has kind of gone, hear no evil, speak no evil, and have let him, basically get away with it. Because Kevin Porter Jr. is being charged. He's going to court. And the NBA has not suspended him, hasn't made any punishment to what he's done. And I'm not saying suspend him without having evidence. That's not what I'm saying. But at the very least, put him on I'll say what the NFL does, put him on the commissioner's list, which basically means he is ineligible to play indefinitely, and not only be around the team, but isn't suspended. He's on the commissioner's list. So basically, they're evaluating what they're going to do about it. And either they take him off the commissioner's list and they're allowed to play, and it's just that was the suspension, was their time on the commissioner's list, or they add a suspension onto it where they're not allowed to play this many games and they're fined this much amount of money. But Adam Silver either needs a policy like that or needs to use a policy like that so the league doesn't have these types of instances that it's already having, and it looks like it's going to continue to have.
I think I remember you saying that the NBA has turned into more of a players' league, and to a degree you don't like it.
Ben.
I think it's also gone to a players' league because of issues like this. And I guess why I referenced David Stern in this instance is because that wouldn't have flied under Stern. The off the court stuff. It seems like the players are just dictating what's going around the league and in terms of like issues, and there's not a hard line with this, especially with domestic violence, which is no joke. And the NBA's got to figure this out and soon, because God forbid if there was ever a Henry Ruggs situation in the NBA, all hell will break loose.
Hopefully, knock on wood, that doesn't happen. But again, with the way players seemingly have power in the NBA, it'd be interesting to see what Adam Silver and the NBA did about a guy like Henry Ruggs. But now moving on to more serious allegations. So the show's getting a little heavier. Don't worry, we will lighten up as the show goes on. But we're getting all the heavy stuff out of the way. Dwight Howard has been accused of sexual assault. So I remember not too long ago, Kajan, you were asking, why is a guy like Dwight Howard, for example, not in the NBA? Because he is talented enough to be in the NBA. And now this comes out. I'm not saying this is the reason he's not in the NBA. I do think it's other things. But this is now adding to why Dwight Howard will most likely never be an NBA basketball player again. So he was accused of sexual assault by another man. And actually, it looks like it was a former NBA player and another person. So he's being accused by two separate people. And so Stephen Harper is the defendant in a civil suit that's been placed against Howard since July, alleging assault, battery, false imprisonment, and intentional infliction of emotional distress are the civil suit accusations. And then to give you a little bit of the story, because I don't really want to go through this because again it is rather off-putting, but I feel like I have to. So Dwight Howard allegedly contacted Mr. Harper through Instagram, and they had shared explicit text messages. And they arranged to meet at Dwight's house back in July 19th, 2021. So this is a few years ago now. While on his way to the residence, Harper says Dwight texted him and asked if another man or woman could join their planned sexual encounter. Harper said he told Howard he was not interested. Once at Howard's house, Harper claims they were joined by a man dressed as a woman who identified only as Kitty. Harper says he tried to resist the two men, but Howard and Kitty forced him to participate in sexual activities. And the report continues. So that is why he is suing. Dwight Howard's obviously come out and said that it was a consensual sexual activity and no assault took place. You and I are not here to indict or give a pass to Dwight Howard. That's not what we're here to do. But it's important to talk about stories like this because, again, it adds to Kevin Porter Jr., Miles Bridges, etc. So Dwight Howard now in hot water with this civil suit. And I don't really know where else to go with it, Kate, other than just say Dwight Howard will never play in the NBA again, I would say. This report just puts that final nail in the coffin that Dwight will most likely never play in the NBA again. May go back overseas, if that's Taiwan or what have you, but his NBA career is officially over.
You'd have to say so after hearing what is going on. And and like the talk before this lawsuit came out, was that Dwight Howard was being blackballed from the NBA because of the same thing Carmelo Anthony got blackballed from the NBA for a bit. Ego and role. Clearly that isn't the case, and he spoke out about his sexuality in like 2019 and said he was hurt by it. And now fast forward to this, and all these details, all this explosive details in this lawsuit are coming out, and it's just like, and I've seen the comments on this on social media because that's how I found out. People were going off on how he's gay. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, some of y'all have your priorities on that he's gay and not that he sexually assaulted someone.
Allegedly sexually assaulted someone.
Allegedly. But I'm like, y'all got your priorities messed up, and it's just like, that's another thing. Like, it's just mind-boggling. It's just mind-boggling that something like this could allegedly happen, and he wasn't getting enough NBA.
Well, Cage, I can't exactly sure if you've cut out or not. I will mention Cage was at Union Station downtown Toronto after the Raptors game. So we're just trying to get this thing recorded up and edited and ready to go for posting. So I will quickly move on. Cage, are you back?
Yeah. Oh,
there we go.
Am I back home? Yeah.
No, we got you. All right. So we're gonna do a little bit different, Cage. So we didn't do Scrabble board on Monday for obvious reasons. The episode without it was 2 hours long.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do something a little different today. We're gonna do one name right now, and we're gonna do the next two later.
Okay.
And actually, that's a lie, Cage. I tell a lie. We're gonna do two names now, and we're gonna do the last one later in the show. And you'll see why as we go on. So the first name, Cage, are you ready from the Scrabble board?
Yep.
HSMTOA.
Whoops, I'm muted. Is this Cameron Thomas?
It is Cam Thomas of the Brooklyn Nets, who dropped 36 in a 114-113 loss to Cleveland, but 36 points off the bench for Cam Thomas, continuing to show as much as he's a walking bucket, he still seemingly will not start for the Brooklyn Nets. Doesn't seem like what iteration they have for him to start.
Honestly, it's the best sort of role that he could play though, because he can just gun. He can just be a gunner off the bench, and just find his own offense. In the starting lineup with Bridges and Dinwiddie in the starting lineup, he can't really do that. So, if anything, this is kind of like a perfect role for him to like run the second unit.
All right, you ready for the second name? Again, second of three, but the third one we will talk about later in the show. So you ready for the second name? And the last name for now, it is OPOTSNHM.
Klay Thompson?
Right name, wrong player.
It's one of the twins, isn't it? Osser?
It is the Detroit Pistons forward, Osser Thompson, who had 4 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, and eye-opening 5 blocks in his first NBA game yesterday night.
Oh, man.
Who'd have thunk it?
I mean, he's always been a stat sheet stuffer back with Overtime Elite and during preseason. And I actually got him with my last draft pick in a couple of other leagues. So, hey, man, I'm just saying, looking at that stat line, I'm looking like a little bit of a genius.
I mean, he went 1 for 7 from the field and 1 for 2 from 3. That 5 blocks, though. He had more than Jalen Duren, who we all know is a special kind of rim protector, as young as Jalen Duren is, who had 17 points, 14 rebounds, 4 assists and 4 blocks on his night, even though Detroit, again, also lost by 1 point. So I picked 2 teams who lost by 1 point. A Heat win 103-102.
And I think more importantly, Cade Cunningham's back.
30-point night for Cade Cunningham, the former Oklahoma State star guard, former first overall pick. But
I'm gonna say this: Detroit defensively is going to be a problem.
I mean, they're already looking like it, Cage.
Like they got talent all across. The only problem is they can't really shoot that well, and you do need shooting to be a contender in the NBA eventually. But they got a good foundation going on, and this team's going to surprise a lot of people in the NBA, especially with Monty Williams at the helm.
I couldn't agree more with that, Cage. But again, we're going to continue the opening night and now second night of games that have completed. So the Nuggets win game 1, 119-107 over the Los Angeles Lakers. And the Phoenix Suns also got their opening night win, 108-104 over the Golden State Warriors. And Golden State's lineup: Steph Curry, point guard; Chris Paul, shooting guard; Klay Thompson, small forward; Andrew Wiggins, power forward; and Kevon Looney at the center position. So all of the guys we thought were starting are starting in Chris Paul, Curry, and Klay Thompson. With Draymond Green being injured, we'll see what the lineup looks like when Draymond comes back. But definitely going to be interesting to see how Golden State starts the year without Draymond Green, but specifically with that starting lineup of Chris Paul, Steph Curry, and Klay Thompson playing the 1, 2, and the 3.
Well, looking at that lineup, you'll get great playmaking from Curry and Chris Paul. The issue is Klay's not the same two-way player. And I'm looking at the stat, and like literally the only thing that he could provide is his shot, and if it isn't falling, it's an issue. And I'm looking at the stat line right now: 6 of 18 from the field, 3 of 11 from the field. He literally built up bricks of what I like to call him a Squidward's house. Yes, I said he looks like Squidward's house. I'm not taking that back. But and then on the other side, Wiggins being at the 4 He's supposed to have a bigger offensive role, but only went 4 for 12. Now Looney's gonna do his thing. And grab rebounds and crash the glass on the offensive and defensive end. But it's a very small lineup, and if they're not going offensively, they'll get burned on both ends of the floor. And they need Draymond back and soon.
I couldn't agree more with that. Some other games that have concluded. I want to mention something else, Cage. And a game that I think is really interesting is the Spurs versus the Magic, or the Spurs versus the Mavericks, pardon me. So a battle of Texas between Dallas and San Antonio. San Antonio's starting lineup, Cajun, goes as follows. Jeremy Sohan, former first-round pick out of Baylor. Keldon Johnson playing small forward. They have Devin Vassell playing shooting guard. Wembanyama playing power forward, and Zach Collins playing center. Now, why do I specify Sohan playing point guard? Because he's a natural power forward / small forward. He is 6'8", playing the point guard position. Vassell and Johnson are 6'5", and Wembanyama is 7'4", and Zach Collins is 6'11". So that starting lineup for San Antonio is huge. They're all massive. So that's a really interesting lineup there for Greg Popovich and the San Antonio Spurs.
And it's their most optimal lineup by far, because you got a 6'8", 6'9" point guard that can be a do-it-all point forward, albeit his jumper isn't the greatest, but he's working on it. And then you got the unicorn that is Wembanyama. He's in foul trouble with 5 fouls. But then there's underrated pieces on that team, like Devin Vassell, who right now is leading the way with 21 points. Keldon Johnson's had a great game and has 7 assists. All these guys can pass the ball. They can defend. They can shoot the ball to a degree. Zach Collins is very underrated at that 5 position now that he's finally healthy. That team is going to be special, but they are very young. And they're going to make mistakes, and they're going to have to grow through them. And I think the Spurs are one of those teams that I wouldn't be surprised if I don't think they're going to be as bad as people think. I think they'll be closer to like the play-in picture. I don't think they're going to be I don't think they're going to be one of the play-in teams, but they're going to be closer to that play-in picture than most people would think.
Well,
so
go ahead.
So all in all, the future is bright in San Antonio in the Alamo State.
I definitely agree with that. Another team that I had in the play-in when we did our predictions on Monday, the Orlando Magic win 106-86 over the Houston Rockets. Houston also a rebuilding team, but Orlando, 20 points from Cole Anthony, 19 points from Franz Wagner, and a bunch of other guys getting some points, getting some minutes. And I'm feeling pretty confident in that Magic team being able to find the right mix as this year goes on to be able to make the play-in. And again, I'm not saying they're going to be a team that wins the play-in, but I think they're going to make the play-in, which again is still a strive for a team that has really struggled to find the right mix of young guys in Orlando.
I think that I believe they started off 5-20 last season, but then the rest of the way they were a 500 team. So last season there were like stretches where they actually looked good. It's just that start kind of like buried them for good. Now if they have a decent start to the season, they can easily be on the upper echelon of the play of one of the play-in teams. They got a ton of talent on both ends of the floor. Not the greatest in terms of like star level in terms of guard play, but they're solid. And Cole Anthony, mind you, he had 20 points. He also had 8 rebounds. Jalen Suggs, Markelle Fultz has really turned his career around. They got a steady. They're steady at the 5 in with Wendell Carter Jr. Obviously, I know Spencer's a huge fan of Franz Wagner, the German wonderkind, and then
Gold medalist in the World
Paulo.
Cup.
Yes, sir. And Paulo's going to take a big step forward in terms of like fine tuning the ancillary parts of his game, as well as being efficient. So this Magic team is going to be special.
And another team you and I love, this will be the last time we talk about individually before we move on to just talking about the Raptors and the Celtics. Because again, I watched the end of the Celtics game. Thank goodness I did, because they were able to come back and beat the Knicks in a horrible end of the game for the Celtics till the very end. And Kajan, again, working for MLSE, was at the Raptors game. We'll talk about how much he actually got to see. But Indiana, the Pacers, 143-120 winners over the Washington Wizards. Tyrese Halliburton, in only 26 minutes, had 20 points, 11 assists with 2 blocks, pretty efficient scoring. Bruce Brown, 24 points in only 27 minutes. Very efficient night. Lots of other guys with lots of double-digit points, Cage, but Tyrese Halliburton is the real deal.
Absolutely. Halliburton is going to spearhead that Pacers team. And I would not be now. Granted, this is against the Wizards, and the Wizards are a rebuilding team. But offensively, that team's special. That I know I've used the word special a lot, but Indiana is going to be a sleeper team. We've both said it, and they're
not a sleeper on this broadcast, but everybody else, you're damn right.
Mm-hmm. And people forget Rick Carlisle's coaching that Pacers team. And Halliburton led the charge with 20 points, 11 assists, a steal, and 2 blocks, 9 of 16 from the field. But Benedict Mathurin was starting, and I know he's one of your favorites, Spence. He had 18 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals. Obi Toppin played a solid role, albeit just 19 minutes, but the game was also a blowout. Miles Turner played solid. Andrew Nembhard off the bench with 10 assists and only 2 turnovers. But circling back to all that, they didn't even lead the score. They didn't even lead the team in scoring. The man that led the Pacers in scoring, 8 of 11 from the field, 6 of 8 from downtown, 2 of 2 from the line, 3 rebounds, an assist, and a steal. One of my favorite players, Bruce Brown Jr. Man, like, and you got Buddy Hield off the bench, who dropped 14 on 4 threes, and they made 23s overall. This Indiana team is going to surprise a lot of people. Now, what remains to be seen is once they surprise people, how do they adjust when teams target them and kind of game plan around them? Because you always have those teams that will catch you by surprise, and then other teams in the NBA will adjust. How will the Pacers adjust accordingly when teams actually game plan around them and are not caught off guard? To me, that's going to be the biggest question with the Pacers. But hey, I had them in the play-in picture, but I wouldn't be surprised if they finished like 5th or 6th in the East.
Well, you and I put Rick Carlisle as the 3rd best coach in the NBA right now. So you got to expect he's going to have his team absolutely rearing to go when teams start taking him seriously, and they're going to adjust appropriately. But again, as you mentioned, we're going to have to see. Now we're going to go to the Raptors. Raptors 97-94 winners over the Minnesota Timberwolves. Dennis Schroeder leading the way for the Raptors, 22 points, 7 assists on relatively good shooting. The only other player that shot particularly well was OG Anunoby, who had 20 points and 6 rebounds with a couple of blocks to boot. But Cage, I know you didn't get a chance to watch the whole game, but from what you saw, what did you like / dislike from the Raptors tonight?
Well, the best player in the world showed why he was the best player in the world, and Dennis Schroeder. And by best player in the world, I mean World Cup MVP Dennis Schroeder. Nah, I'm playing. But Dennis Schroeder kind of showed something that the Raptors never really had at the guard position, even though they had Fred VanVleet. They had size at the guard position, speed, which Fred VanVleet never was any of, and more ball movement. Now, I know they struggle with turnovers, 14 turnovers in total, but 27 assists on 36 made field goals. Pretty big deal. Pretty big deal given that the Raptors were known as a selfish team last year. And they had three guys in the starting lineup that had 5 or more assists. Barnes had 5 assists. Siakam had 6 assists. Dennis Schroeder had 7 assists and led the team in scoring with 22 points. And defensively, they really shut down Minnesota for stretches. Sure, Anthony Edwards, 26 points, 14 rebounds. He took 27 shots to get to 26 points. And Karl Anthony Towns, who I know you hate, cat, let's just say played like a cat.
He had
8 for 20
points. Yeah, he had 19 points, 10 rebounds, 4 blocks, which sounds good until you look at the stat sheet, as you were going to say, Kajan. I got to steal the thunder from you, Kajan, because I can dunk on him now. 8 for 25 from the field was Karl Anthony Towns. And the proclaimed best shooting big man in the league, 2 for 10 from the 3-point line.
Bum. I'm gonna say I literally found this out before, and this is going to make you seethe in anger. Jeff Teague, former NBA point guard Jeff Teague, and I repeat, he said this. I thought it was D'Angelo Russell for a second until I found out who this actually was. Jeff Teague said that Karl Anthony Towns was Wemby before Wemby. I kid you not. And all I could do was I know. Who?
Okay, now I'm quickly going to spell that right now. Karl Anthony Towns, I think, is listed 7 foot. I just looked at it. My brain immediately just forgot. He is a listed 7 foot. Now, Kajan, obviously when you look at the two players, you see the difference, but I'm going to quickly check the stat sheet to make sure I tell you the exact difference. Victor Wembanyama is 7'4", so 4 inches taller, and weighs allegedly 230. I think he's less than 230, but a listed 230. Karl Anthony Towns is 7 feet tall, again 4 inches shorter. He's a listed 256, and I bet he's heavier than that. That was after him dieting for 2 weeks.
After dieting for two weeks? That's crazy.
I don't even know where to begin with that. But quickly before I go completely off topic and just start slamming on Jeff Teague, who was a nobody just about for the Atlanta Hawks on some of the teams that should have won something but didn't because they sucked. Anyway.
And man got gifted a ring in 20. I want to say 2021. Yeah, he got a ring from the Bucks.
Oh, I didn't even know he was one of the bums who sat on the bench or rode the pine. But anyway. So before we continue, before I take all your thunder, quickly say the difference between Cat and Wemby is Cat can't dribble like Victor Wembanyama. He can't rim protect like Victor Wembanyama. And more importantly of those two things, Wemby is more fluid than Karl Anthony Towns because he's not as big. Karl Anthony Towns is more like Zion. And Zion's about 3 or 4 inches shorter than Cat. They're more like to like. He's not even as explosive as Zion Williamson, but he's that size. He's an unathletic Zion Williamson. That's what Cat is. He's an unathletic Zion Williamson. And a little bit taller.
His feet on defense is more like cement.
Yeah,
can't get it.
He's the definition, Cajun, of defending in quicksand. He takes a step and he's like swimming.
And I literally saw at the end, man shot a 3 and tried to flop after Dennis Schroeder put a hand up. I'm like, pitiful.
So continue, Cajun. Raptors beat the Timberwolves. Anything else before we continue to go off topic about Karl Anthony Towns?
Scotty Barnes being a rim protector, and really shutting down stuff in transition. It didn't really show this game, but he was a lot comfortable shooting the ball. He was a lot comfortable shooting the ball from downtown. Pascal Siakam didn't really have a great stat line, but he didn't try to force things. He didn't try to force things, and I'm looking at this right now. Even though they did get out rebounded 62-47, which is kind of expected given that there's Gobert, Towns, and Edwards who all combined for 37 rebounds. But defensively, they shut things down. OG Anunoby was solid with 20 points, 2 steals, 3 blocks, 6 rebounds, was efficient. Guys were playing their roles. I just noticed guys were playing their roles and weren't trying to do too much. And I think like the times that they were trying to do too much, there's such a thing as being too unselfish. And I think a lot of those turnovers were more so too unselfish. And now listen, I don't know how good this Raptors team is going to be, whether they're going to be a play-in team or out of the play-in team or if they're going to surprise people. But this team on both ends of the floor, this might be too early to say one game, but they're going to be a lot more enjoyable to watch and a more free-flowing and fluid, something that I could not say last year.
Well, Cage, I'll quickly say my thoughts on the Celtics before we move on and do our second part of the Scrabble board. The Celtics beat the Knickerbockers 108-104 in a game that ended horribly. So the Celtics were up big when I first looked. They had a great first quarter, 30-18. I thought, okay, so they're going to blow out the Knicks. They then lose the second quarter to make it close at the half. They then win the third quarter a little bit. It's tied when I come in at 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, Cage. Then with 4 minutes to 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter, the Knicks are up by 7 because they hit a 3 to go up by 3. Jaylen Brown tries to inbound at Jason Tatum, who isn't looking for the ball, something that made me want to throw my phone against a wall. Turnover. Knicks pick it up, pass it around, pull up 3 by Brunson, fouled, and 1 on Brown. So Brown turns the ball over, then fouls Jalen Brunson to give him a 4-point play to go up by 7, 100-93. So that made me very happy. But then the Celtics go on an 11-1 run, pull back, and then take the lead because of apparently the second option, but supposed third option, Kristaps Porzingis, who had 30 points, 8 rebounds, 4 blocks, shot 8 for 15 from the field, 5 for 9 from 3, which is above 50%. Best shooting big man in the game. Anyway, Tatum had his 34. Jaylen Brown had a bad night. I would have liked to see Drew Holiday shoot a little more. He only had 9 points, but he had 3 blocks. And a big stat line, Cage, in between the Knicks and the Celtics, especially to end the game, is the Knicks shot 14 for 26 from the free throw line. That's 53%. The Celtics shot 22 for 26 from the free throw line. That's 84%. That's what won the game for the Celtics. The Knicks should have beaten the Celtics tonight. When you listen to this yesterday. What the free throws costed the Knicks, because they had more turnovers/steals. The Celtics had 13 turnovers. The Knicks had 9. 9 steals for the Knicks compared to 6 for the Celtics. Offensive rebounds, 17-7 in favor of the Knicks. The only stat that's really in favor of the Celtics other than shooting percentage from the field, not even from 3, and the free throw percentage, is it was 11 blocks to none in favor of the Celtics. 11 blocks. And again, that was 4 from Kristaps, 3 from Holiday, and a couple ones scattered throughout the rest of the lineup. So defensively, I'm happy with what the Celtics are going to look like. Offensively, I think the 3-ball is still focused on a little too much by the Celtics. And if they're going to get offensively out-rebound, that can't happen, them shooting too many threes. But if the defense is going to stay that good, then I have nothing to worry about as a Celtics fan right now. And I'm not. Even though I was not impressed by what I saw, I'd rather win a tough first game than win it by a blowout, because a blowout doesn't teach me anything. This shows me the Celtics have heart, They have a little bit of fight back. They were down. I thought that and one Cajun was going to cost them the game. It didn't. They come back and they end up winning. So I am very impressed with how the Celtics ended the game, but I'm not impressed with the game, if you will. So hopefully the Celtics defense stays that good, and hopefully the offense can kind of round itself out with all the new pieces of Kristaps and Andrew Holiday and etc.
I mean, you always want to win a tough defensive-minded game because it shows resolve. And credit the Celtics. Usually a possession, usually a run like that from a team in previous years, they would have fallen apart. Credit the Celtics and head coach Joe Mazzulla and his coaching staff for adjusting. And Porzingis had a heck of a Celtics debut, 30 points. Tatum played great as usual. Jaylen Brown for fantasy purposes kind of cheesed me a little bit, but hey, it's just one game. It is what it is. What it is. But Celtics team is going to be a championship contender. But defensively, they look good. Offensively, that's going to be the big story. Can they play smart offensively? Because it seems like for stretches, they relied on the 3-ball a little bit too much. And it's only one game, and adjustments are going to be made because it's tough. It's tough sledding when you had Marcus Smart for so long. Then you trade him away, and then you get somebody like Drew Holiday, who is talented in his own right defensively and is a little bit better offensively. So there's going to be an adjustment process, but defensively, the Celtics do look good, albeit against a Knicks team that can't shoot free throws to save their lives. I guess for both the Raptors and the Celtics, defensively, for the Raptors, defensively, it's what's going to make or break them. And for the Celtics, what's going to make or break them is diversifying their offensive attack.
I couldn't agree more with that last statement you made, Cage, of diversify the offensive approach. Now, Cage, we're going to say the last name of the Scrabble board here before we move on to our next topic. So are you ready? Last Scrabble name, the 3 of 3 Scrabble name. Are you ready?
Yep.
Mr. Theory Castle himself. One day I might throw your name in here just to see if I can get you. You'll probably get it because it is your last name and there's so many damn letters. I'll probably get to like the 8th or 9th character and be like, it's Theory Castle. I'm going to go, you're right. Anyway, so we'll see if I can pull one off on you. Anyway, so the name is MHDERNAB.
Wait. MHD.
MHDERNAB.
MHDERNAD.
You have spelt it right. You are right with what you've written down. It's AB, not D. It's NAB, not D.
NAB. Andrew Nemhard.
It is the Canadian. It is the 12-point, 10-assist man off the bench for the Indiana Pacers tonight/yesterday, Andrew Nemhard. And why did I wait to mention Andrew Nemhard? You mentioned him in our review of the Indiana Pacers, a team you and I both like. You mentioned him. Why did I wait? Well, it's because this year we have 125 international players in the NBA. That is a record for the most international players in the NBA this season. Also a record 26 Canadians of those 125 international players, meaning non-Americans. So this does beg the question, Kajan. With Victor Wembanyama and Nikola Jokic and even Joel Embiid, who's not American, even though he's going to play for America at the Olympics in Paris, he is from Africa. So is the game becoming more of an international sport? And with that question, Kajan, does this mean the Americans not too far from now are going to not be the most dominant country at basketball?
You thinking about it? Down the line, yes, yes. I wholeheartedly believe that. And there's one reason and one reason only: the AAU level. I think it's for like in terms of like younger NBA players, for like younger players who are trying to make it to the NBA, at least from the States. I don't think they're teaching kids the game the right way. With international players, that's not the case. They're taught hard-nosed basketball from all for the most part from all levels of the game. Um, there's EuroLeague. There's EuroLeague. There's overseas basketball. Those guys are cut from a different cloth. And until the USA realizes that and teaches American players how to play the game on both ends of the floor and to play tough and I think this is the biggest thing: injury management, handle injuries better. I think the world's going to catch up very soon, and there's a ton of talent: Luka Doncic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Kristaps Porzingis, Embiid, who is from Cameroon and now is a naturalized U.S. citizen. Guys like Pascal Siakam, who's from Cameroon. There's a lot of talent. There is a lot of international talent. And out of the 125 international players, 26 of them are from Canada, which is also a league high, a country high. One of them being Mr. 39 himself, the great Dylan Brooks. And mind you, in that game against Orlando, he actually shot 5 of 7 from the field, so he was efficient. So
5 of 7 from the field, Cage. 4 for 6 from 3, 14 points, tied with the game high with the team high of VanVleet and Sagoon with 14.
He should have taken some of Van Vliet's or Jalen Green's shots. Like, damn.
Maybe.
The way Jalen Green, what did Jalen Green go from? A 2 for 10?
10 points, 2 for 10 from the field. 0 for 1 from 3.
Bruh. He did get better. He didn't take 20 shots.
When you got VanVleet and other guys around you, I don't think you can. I don't think you can justify him taking that many shots, even though he's a really talented player.
Mm-hmm.
But
can't disagree with you there.
But I guess we're gonna have to see how much longer the Americans have the stronghold of the NBA, because it's only gonna get worse from here if you look at it. And I mean that from Americans' perspective. If we are at a record now of 125 international players, 26 of those Canadian, and it's only going to get more so because of the money going into it here in Canada for, practices and obviously AAU ball and university ball and all of that stuff, which I'm not saying any of those guys are NBA players, but regardless, the money going into basketball here in Canada is going up. The money in it going over in Germany, who just won the World Cup, in Spain, who've always been good, in Serbia, who have Nikola Jokic, in Africa with the African programs. And I think Masai Ujiri really spearheaded that idea of growing the game in Africa across of
Giants of Africa.
It's only going to get wider from here, the gap between international players and Americans, and the amount of Americans in the game versus Europeans and Africans and even Asia. Because right now there aren't a whole lot of Asian players. I don't think there is any Asian players in the NBA right now from China or Japan or Korea. Imagine China finally.
Rui Hachimura?
Hachimura, you're right. I tell a lie. He was born in Japan. You're right.
Are we counting the Philippines in this?
Oh, they would count as Asia. I'm not sure. Actually, I don't know if they count as Asia or Oceania.
Because if that's the case, Jordan Clarkson?
Well, okay. I'll rephrase in saying there are very few Asians in the NBA.
Fair enough.
I couldn't think of any, and you, Rui Hachimura, and you are very much correct. Fan of his out of, again, Gonzaga, now with the Lakers. Jeremy Lin was kind of the poster boy of that, especially from China. So once China starts really putting money into basketball, because right now, like, they pay the rights, they show it, they love the NBA. How big a fan base T-Mac had, Tracy McGrady, how big a fan base Allen Iverson has in Asia. Once China starts putting money into basketball and they start playing basketball at a really high level, watch out. Because, again, they got 1 billion people over there in China. They're going to have some really good ballers if they wanted to. It's just right now they don't. So if that ever becomes a moment, Cage, that number of international players is going to skyrocket higher than it already is now.
Yeah.
So we will move on to, I'm going to say, an American. I'm not exactly sure. Let me quickly look here. I will again mention Kajan is at Union Station, which is why all the background noise is going on around him. Yes, the American, Andre Iguodala, the former Golden State Warrior champion. He has officially retired after a comment saying he needs a new knee, 2 new hips, and his body has failed him one time too many. But he is now done from the NBA. And Cage, I'm going to let you answer this question first because my answer is pretty simple. You're down in the lineup. Is he a Hall of Famer? Is Andre Iguodala a Hall of Famer?
Well, folks, this isn't the NBA Hall of Fame. It's the Basketball Hall of Fame. So also it goes into account what you've done, say, college ball and whatnot.
Internationally as well.
Internationally as well. Now, the numbers suggest Andre Iguodala is not a Hall of Fame player. But I could argue that without him, the Warriors aren't the Warriors. Him playing a role that the Warriors needed him to be. When he did, he wasn't known as the greatest scorer, but he could score. I think his career high was just a hair under 20 per game in 07-08 with the 76ers.
19.9, Cage. 19.9 in
19
in 07-08.
Okay. But he was that do-it-all forward. We've seen a lot of do-it-all forwards in the NBA right now. Andre Iguodala is one of the original ones. And when he went to Golden State, the fact that he played a role in which he was overqualified to play kind of led to the Warriors being the dynasty that they are. Obviously, having a Finals MVP did help in spite of how LeBron played, but 20 years from now, nobody's going to remember really that. They're going to remember Andre Iguodala having a Finals MVP. And I believe in his college, he did win an NCAA title. I want to make sure I have that right.
Well, I can quickly check that. He played for Arizona, so that is very possible. Arizona is a rather historic basketball school, are the Wildcats.
No, he didn't. He didn't.
He did not.
He didn't. I guess in terms of sort of like the accolades that he's had and the role that he's played, and based off of the fact that there have been some names that don't have like the counting stats that have made it to the Basketball Hall of Fame, I think he could very well be Hall of Fame.
Well, I can quickly say, move on very fast. No, he's not a Hall of Famer. Never was a Hall of Famer. Just because he's got 4 rings, because he was on a great team with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and in fairness, Draymond Green, who also probably make the Hall of Fame, who shouldn't. Iguodala, if you're gonna let Draymond Green in, which I don't think they should, you can't let Iguodala in. You get one or the other. You can't get both. You can't get 2 guys who average less than 10 points a game for their career. Iguodala is like 11 points per game, so I do tell a lie a little bit there, but it's not that much of an embellishment to say that he is not a Hall of Famer, and I disagree that he is a Hall of Famer, and he should not go in. because I think
Now-
that is ridiculous.
Now, in terms of that, I do agree. But I've seen someone like Maurice Cheeks make the NBA, make the Hall of Fame. Maurice Cheeks does not have the counting stats and kind of had a similar role to Andre Iguodala in winning a title, and they only won one, and he only won that one title with Philly, and yet he's in the Basketball Hall of Fame. Going off of that, if somebody like Maurice Cheeks made it to the NBA, to the Basketball Hall of Fame, and I need to remind you, it's not the NBA Hall of Fame, it's the Basketball Hall of Fame. If somebody like Mo Cheeks make the Basketball Hall of Fame, somebody like Iggy is going to. Should he? No. Will he? It's a possibility.
Well, I don't disagree with your logic, Kajan. I just disagree because, again, I'm going to sit on my side of the pool. No, he's not a Hall of Famer. No, he shouldn't go in the Hall of Fame. And I will resist it until he goes in and I complain about him being in. And then he's added to those list of names you just mentioned there with Mo Cheeks of guys that, well, he's in, so the other guy must go in. And it becomes a complete cycle of garbage. So anyway, he shouldn't go in. I disagree. I agree with your logic. I disagree with the sentiment. But Anyway, we'll quickly move on. He is now going to be a broadcaster. He's joining ESPN alongside Becky Hammond and the Austin Rivers as ESPN analysts. So he's joining another guy who got all of who famously said it, Cage. He got all his money from his dad. Was that Stoudemire? No, Gilbert Arenas? Or who was that?
He got all his money from his dad? I don't know.
Was it Kendrick Perkins? It was some Celtic, I feel like. And it was and Gilbert Arenas not a Celtic, but it was somebody, either a Celtic or Gilbert Arenas, when they were on like a beach or something, and Austin Rivers said something about them, and they basically went on this whole tirade about Austin Rivers being a bum and getting all his money from his dad and not earning anything, and
Why do I
kind of pushing that negative.
Why do I have a feeling it's either Kendrick Perkins or Big Baby Davis?
I think it's actually I think you're right. I think it's Glenn Davis. I think it's Glenn Big Baby Davis. I think you're very right. I think you're very right in that comment. That is a great shout by you, Kajan. So I think you're right there with that. But anyway.
Okay. Let me make this quick about Iguodala. Iguodala has always had, for all his talks about like will he or should he make the Hall of Fame, he's always got a great basketball mind. He's shown it in more so a part-time player coach role for like the Warriors before he retired. I think his insight's going to be refreshing for NBA fans to hear. Obviously, you and I love some Becky Hammond.
Future NBA, first female NBA coach. It's coming. Some
Yeah,
GM's got to have the balls to do it, but I'm waiting for that GM to do it. And honestly, Cage, if I was a betting man, which I sort of am, I would put money that Greg Popovich retires and Becky Hammond becomes new head coach of the San Antonio Spurs. I feel like that's what's going to happen.
I couldn't agree more with that. And it's going to be so insightful hearing her take on the game of basketball and not hear her like while she's coaching in the middle of a WNBA finals game, which is just ludicrous. And as for Austin Rivers, there's such thing as getting one too many opportunities from your daddy. This is one of those opportunities. This is one of those instances for Austin Rivers.
And the only reason why I know it's an opportunity from his dad, Kajan, is because I was watching the Celtics versus Knicks game, and guess who the two analysts were? It was the great Doris Burke. It was the great Doris Burke, who I wish would have done at WNBA games this year because I think she's so good and so knowledgeable. And I think she would have made such a great addition to the WNBA broadcast as a woman broadcaster who is fantastic. Cannot say enough good things about Doris Burke. But it was the great Doc Rivers, as you say, Glenn Rivers. It was the great Doc Rivers, former Celtics coach, former head coach when the Celtics had, ironically, Tom Thibodeau as the assistant with the Celtics when they won the championship back in 2008. Well, obviously, Thibodeau now the coach of the New York Knicks. So his former assistant playing his former team as an analyst was, I think, pretty good for his skill set, but still, it was Glenn Rivers, or Doc Rivers preferably, and Doris Burke. So, Austin Rivers joining his dad in the analyst ranks after joining his dad on the Los Angeles Clippers and the Houston Rockets.
Pitiful. But yeah, I'm not too familiar with it.
Who doesn't love a dad getting their son a job? Now, we're going to try to end this quickly as Kajan, again, is still surrounded by the mob after the Raptors game. It's going to be a little bit of off basketball topic. So for the first time on this show, 21 episodes in, we're going to go off topic from basketball. I do apologize. So if you're only here for basketball, you may bid a farewell adieu. We will see you on Monday. We're back for our regularly scheduled programming. But Mad Dog Russo, the Bob Cousy enthusiast, Mad Dog Russo, made a comment. So he didn't think the Diamondbacks would win their wild card game. They did. He didn't think they'd win the AL or the NLDS. They did. They were now down 3-2 to the Philadelphia Phillies. And Mad Dog Russo said, and I quote, if the Arizona Diamondbacks win game 6 and game 7, I will retire on the spot. Well, Kajan, the Bob Cousy enthusiast, might have to actually eat his own crow, as the Diamondbacks did win game 6 and game 7 and are now in the World Series against the Texas Rangers. So everything Mad Dog Russo said they weren't going to do, they've now done, and now take on Texas on Friday. So technically tomorrow. So, Cage, I guess my question for you is pretty simple. Do you think the Bob Cousy enthusiast, Mad Dog Russo, is going to retire from being an analyst?
No.
You don't think he follows his word?
No, he's gonna twist it around and say he's gonna retire from radio. Call him Chris Mad Cap Russo because he's saying a lot of cap, but just with MLB playoffs in general, I'm going a little bit off topic here, but it's just been great. Like Texas Houston on the AL side for the ALCS. The only time the road team won all 7 games. The last time that's happened was 2019. Was the 2019 World Series between the Nationals and the Astros. And go figure, it involved the Astros, and I'm pretty sure every baseball fan is thrilled to see the Astros not in the World Series. And Arizona's just a great success story with Corbin Carroll, Ketel Marte, ex-Jays players, Gabby Moreno and Lourdes Gurriel Jr. I'm pretty sure Jays fans are throwing up in their mouths right now, but hey, it's going to be a great World Series, and if the Diamondbacks win the World Series, Madcap Russo, as I like to call him now, might end up having a seizure by the end of this.
And again, I do want to say his real name. His name is Chris Russo, but everyone calls him Mad Dog on the radio and on ESPN when he does make his appearances on First Take and defends. Again, as I keep saying, the Bob Cousy enthusiast. The reason why I say that is because on First Take, he continued to defend Bob Cousy about best point guard ever and all that type of stuff. And it was kind of funny. Anyway, quickly before we move off and end the show, I'm trying to look here. So it looks like Mad Dog Russo's already gone by his promise here, and he said, "I stand by my promise." After the Diamondbacks won Game 7, so that was after Game 6. Russo had said if the Diamondbacks win Game 7, he will retire, and then apparently Russo joined the Howard Stern show and admitted he doesn't want to retire.
Shouldn't have said what he said then.
And here it is, Cage. Here it is. So, as negotiated with at Stern show, so on the David Stern show, instead of retiring, Chris Mad Dog Russo will wear a Diamondbacks bikini, walk through the streets of New York City wearing a sign that says "I'm a," and I don't want to say this word, but it starts with a D and ends with a oosh. I don't know if it counts as an inappropriate word, but yeah, it starts with a D, ends with an oosh. I'm a insert word here. And then it was the audio from the show for Mad Dog Russo.
Man. Watch him not do that either. Would not shock me.
So we'll see if Mad Dog does what they just said in that tweet or not, or if that's another rib. But anyway, so Mad Dog Russo not retiring, but maybe he should with that take on the poor Diamondbacks. You know,
I'm gonna call him Mad Cap after this. Mad Cap Russo.
you're not wrong, Cage. You're not wrong. But that'll be it for us here from Polar Opposites. For Cajun, Thiru, Fanny, Caslam, I'm Spencer Byers. Thank you so much for taking us in here today. We'll be back on Monday for your regularly scheduled programming here on the Outrage Inc.